everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have my October wrap up. So I basically deviated from my TBR a little bit in the month of October. We've already talked about this, but I'm actually happy with the amount of books that I read. So we're just gonna jump right on into my stats first. I read 8 books in the month of October. I think this is one more than I mentioned in my TBR for the rest of the year type of thing. I said 7, but it's because I was reading a book at the very end of October that I did technically finish the first day of November. We'll talk about it, but I read most of it in October and I would like to just talk about it now. So we're just gonna include it in October. That means that I did read 2,554 pages, which is great. I wanna say my minimum is usually I want 2,000. I want 2,000 pages done, so I was able to do more than that, which is great. I also did a lot of audiobook listening this month as well, so I have 12.5 hours, whereas the last few months were barely hitting 5 at the most. So this is my third highest audiobook month. Obviously we'll get into that as well, but not mad at that. We're gonna go into the individual month stats. So for the reading method this month, I read 4 physical books, 2 audiobooks, 1 ebook, and there was 1 book that I said is multiple, and that is because I read it physically and then switched to reading it physically with the audiobook. Again, we'll talk about that as well. The genres, I read from 4 different genres this month. 3 were horror, 2 were fantasy, 2 were paranormal, and 1 was a thriller. Obviously, we were in October, so this mix of genres makes sense. For the book format, 6 of them were novels and 2 were graphic novels. 2 of them were also indie published, where 6 were traditionally published. How I got it, 4 of them are books that I owned prior to this year. They were off of my TBR. 2 are books that I bought this year and put on my TBR, so ultimately 6 of them came off of my TBR, which is great. 1 was a book that I borrowed from the library, and 1 was a reread that I just on a whim decided to read. For the age category, 6 of them were adult titles and 2 were young adult. This is getting back to what my actual ratio is. I read a lot of manga the last couple months and things, which made my young adult totals seem higher than they usually would be. I usually read more adult books. For the publication year, this is a new one for this year that I'm tracking. 5 of them are backlist. 2 of them were published in 2024 and 1 was published this year in 2025. I only track the years for 3 years right now, I want to say. 2025, 2024, 2023, everything else I consider backlist or classics. I did not read any classics, obviously. I've also been tracking some author stats. The only one that I've been sharing with you every single month is where the author is from, which I just think is fun to check out. And so for this month, 5 of the authors were from the United States, 1 was from Canada, and 1 was from England. Now, that is only 7 books. I'm only tracking each author once, and that includes for my yearly stats as well. So when we go at the very end of the year, beginning of next year, through all of my yearly stats, if I read any author more than once, and I have a few authors that I've read more than once, they're only getting counted once in all of my author stats. So from where an author is from, gender, and other things like that, they're only counted once. So I did read 1 author twice in the month of October, but they were only counted once. So this looks pretty on point for me. I feel like a lot of the authors that I read are from the United States. Publishing is huge here, but I think every single month I have branched out to other countries. This one is Canada and England, but I've also found myself in Asia and other things like that. So that is that. I think the only other stat we have right now is the star rating. So for the month of October, my average rating is a 4.3, which is actually really good. My star rating for the year right now is 3.88. So I had some really good reads in the month of October. We did have 4 5-star reads, 1 4.5, 1 4, 1 3.5, and 1 3. That 3 was my lowest rated book, which is amazing. So we are actually gonna go into all the books that I read. We're gonna start with that 3-star and then work my way up to my favorite book of the month. So the 3-star book that I read is Twisted Dark Volume 1 by Neil Gibson. This is a graphic novel of short stories that all have some sort of twist in them. And I was really hoping to give this a higher rating. This is something that I bought at Emerald City Comic Con this year, met the author and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that he does is allows you to like read the first couple stories in here to sort of see what the stories are like the way the twists are before you purchase the book. I read the first one. The first one with the twist is dark, but sort of funny, and I really, really enjoyed that. From my understanding, there are other volumes in the series, and as you go, some of the stories are potentially going to grow into more things. There were a couple stories in here that were like direct sequels to ones at the beginning, but a lot of them are completely separate. The reason I gave this a 3-star is not all of them were very intriguing, like I was hoping for a little bit more, but there is some very blatant racism and Islamophobia type of stuff in here that did not need to be in here. We did not need to give a Muslim Islam character the bad twist. It was very off-putting. And it wasn't just that. I think we also had an Asian sort of character in here that also had a bad twist. Like, yes, these stories are dark, but I didn't like the choices that were made for some of the characters. We have a lot of different people of color in here, like some of the main characters are black, and not all the twists are necessarily bad. Some, like I said, the first story was dark, but more in a funny sort of vein. And so I was really hoping for more from this, but it put a bad taste in my mouth because of how wrong some of the stuff felt. Like I said, very sort of racist and Islamophobic, and I just did not enjoy those parts at all. So while this had potential, I don't think I'm going to continue with any more in the series. My 3.5-star is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. This, I was just hoping for a little bit more from. This starts off very slow. It is sort of like, I'm curious, what happened? This is about a guy who is sort of helping get a reboot of Horror Movie, which is like what it's called in the book as well. That he like was one of the characters back in the day, and something happened where the movie was never released. Later on, like maybe 10 so years after that, little snippets had gone up on the internet that then made people think that maybe this was going to be a cult classic type of thing, let's get it remade. And so he's sort of in that, people are coming to him, he's like one of the last people left of like who they could talk to about getting this remade. I will say, I do think it gets way better at the end. I do think it had some really good horror elements near the end, but it took a little too long to get there. This is interspersed with like present day, the past, and the movie script. This is the one that I started reading physically, and then I decided, you know what, I want to try on audiobook, because as you read, there are parts in here where the person narrating this, the guy that we're following, talks about how he is doing this to make an audiobook. So I was curious about that. It is sort of like a full cast for the script parts. Totally could not think of that. But I will say there is an interesting choice during some of the script parts to have people sort of stop in their lines and then go back. And that's not in the way that the script is written. There are also certain parts in here where it'll tell you like who's talking. The audiobook does not do that. There are 2 women in the script that sound very similar in my mind during the audiobook, so I was happy that I was following along with this, but like, so it's not 100% like translatable from the audiobook to the physical. But he does mention he's doing this for an audiobook, so I decided to read it at the same time, about halfway through maybe. Yeah, 3.5, I was hoping for more. The ending definitely got better though. Moving on to my 4-star, we have Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is the one that I also listened to on audio. I know I have it here, but this is a good audiobook. It is just one narrator, but there are parts in here where our main character is like, has her mother's journal and notes to her, and apparently some of it is crossed out, and in the audiobook, you can actually hear them reading a line, and then you hear a shh, and then reading shh, like you can hear the crossing out. So I knew what that was. There are also some illustrations in here, which I found out, like I looked partway through the audiobook. I do not think it took away from my experience listening to the audiobook instead of reading it physically with the illustrations and things. This is more of a 4-star because it was intriguing, a little bit creepy, a little bit dark, because this is a book about like 2 houses that are like sort of like parallel in a way. Our main character is an orphan who gets told like, hey, you have a family, come to this house. And then when she's there, weird stuff is happening and she discovers this like parallel house sort of thing. But I did not like the ending of this one. So while I was enjoying a lot of it, I just could not get on board with like some of the stuff that happened at the end. Like I could sort of see it coming, but at the same time, I was really hoping for a different direction for this. So 4 stars. My 4.5 star is actually one of the books that I read that was of the 2 books by one author this month. And the other one is a 5-star, so I actually want to save that for later. I will talk about that. So now we're just gonna go into my 5-star reads. The first one I have here is Let Me in Your Window by Adam Ellis. This is a graphic novel comic collection from this author, this illustrator who I do follow on Instagram. I also am part of their Patreon. So some of these comics I have seen a little bit before because he will share some of the stories on his Patreon, but it's a bunch of short stories that are more in a weird horror vein, and I have nothing to complain about. They were creepy. Some of them were a little bit funny. They were fun. It's very much like his style. If you like his comics, you will like this story. It's a second short story collection. I really liked the other one as well. And so yeah, this was a really good, like I literally could not give it lower than a 5 because there was nothing to complain about. I just had fun the whole time. My next 5-star was Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. This is going to be more mystery thriller-esque. We have a family where our main character, her mother has passed away. She was on hospice, and this daughter, I think her name Elizabeth, she is like the oldest child, and she was the only one taking care of her mom. Her younger sister and her younger brother don't come back until after her mom has already passed away. So there is some like family tension. She feels like she's been stuck at home. Her sister is an addict and is trying to get sober. And then her younger brother is very, very smart and has basically moved out of town and like feels like he's better than everybody else. But after her mother has passed away, they get like some of their inheritance and discover this like VHS tape that is like a family home movie where something bad has happened, and now they're like trying to figure everything out. This is one of those ones that felt like it could be very much like domestic mystery thriller type of thing, and while it did have some of those elements, I do think it was very fast-paced and not 100% just focused on the family. Like there was a different sort of mystery thing going on. I did guess the reveal of this a little bit, but there was enough like red herring stuff going on that I was questioning myself, which I think is really good for this author. Like I just really enjoyed the ride of this whole thing. I did not want to put this down, so 5 stars. The next 5-star I have here is a reread, and that's the only reason it's not my favorite book of the month, because this is a book that when I first read it, I think was back in 2020, was my favorite book of the entire year, and that is going to be Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I saw a post on like Instagram or something that was like, if you read this starting on October 28th and read this many chapters a day, you will be reading this at the same time the story takes place. And so I was like, I can't help myself. The thing about this is the end of the story, like the epilogue and things like that, do take place in November. So I did finish it in November, but I'm counting it here. I just absolutely love the story, and I actually listened to this one on audiobook. The first time I read it physically, and because I was rereading it, I decided to read the audiobook. And it is very, very well done. I absolutely love the audiobook. I love our characters. This is like one of my favorite books, and it holds up to this day, 5 years after I first read it. I just absolutely love it. It is paranormal. We have our main character of Yadriel, who is trans and is trying to prove himself to be a brujo in this society where you're either a brujo or a bruja, where you're like a type of witch is like the translation term, but like based on your gender, you have different powers. And because he is trans and wants to be accepted for who he actually is, he has to sort of like do things by himself with his cousin to help, obviously. I love Maritza as well. But he's trying to prove himself. And in order to do that, he wants to find a soul that is tethered to this world and help them move on. And in that sort of vein, while trying to do that, he finds Julian, who is a kid that he sort of knows from school and apparently has died that night and does not remember what happened. Nobody knows what happened to him, and he's trying to help him. I absolutely love this. There is some romance and stuff going on. It is very, like, get you in your feels. Like, this is something that as soon as I start reading it, I am wholeheartedly in it. I loved it so much. It was a reread for me, but like the audiobook was very, very well done. And so the last thing that we need to talk about is 2 books, obviously. One is a 5-star and my favorite book of the month. That wasn't a reread. And the other one I did give 4.5, which I mentioned before. And that's going to be The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. So The Bridge Kingdom, the first book in this series, which is sort of a duology, I gave 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. I started reading it at the very, very end of September, but not a ton, which is why we're counting it here. I finished it a few days into October. This is political and fantasy, and there is some romance, and she is basically betrothed to this king. I think it's actually a king of another kingdom, but she's been trained for years of her life to be an assassin, so that when she goes over there, she will eventually kill him and spy and things to help her kingdom. Things go from there. It is like fantasy romance and stuff. Again, the emotions and everything in this book, I could not put it down. I absolutely love this one. It ends on a cliffhanger, obviously, and so I had to pick up the next one. So I literally went out the next day and bought this one because I did not own it, so I could figure out what was going on with it. I did give this one 4.5 stars instead of a full 5. I think part of it is because the romance vibes are not there as much. This turns into more of a very political, violent, war-based fantasy, which is not necessarily bad, but like the vibes were not there as much as the first one. The beginning of the book was really, really good. There was a part in the middle that got very, very slow that I did not like, and then the end was, again, very, very good. And I just really liked where this was taken. Now, this is a series, but each couple that the series follows has 2 books. So I basically finished the duology. I definitely want to continue in this series to see where everything is going to go, because like besides the part in the middle that I was just like, it was taking a little bit too long to get from the beginning part to the end part, which I love those parts. If I didn't have that part be so slow, this would have gotten a 5-star for me again, because like the emotions it makes you feel, especially near the end, it got me. I definitely want to continue with the series, but we will be following a different main couple in books 3 and 4, so I do want to read them, but it wasn't as much of a need as like when I finished The Bridge Kingdom and had to know what was going to happen. I literally picked this up the very next day. So, 5 stars. Favorite book of the month. Very, very good. Good continuation. Makes me want to read more, but like, this was like top tier. And that was everything. So again, pretty good. I'm happy with the amount of stuff that I read, especially since I had a week or so near the end of the month where I wasn't even posting videos because I was sick and just brain did not want to read. So like I still got quite a few things done, which I am happy about. And that is going to be it for me today. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos coming out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So I will see you then. Bye.